Well, here to debate, Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under the Obama administration, and former U.S. Army CIA-trained senior intelligence operative, Colonel Tony Shaffer. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So, Colonel, I'll start with you. There was this article in USA Today, and it said that President Trump basically added 3 countries to what had been President Bush's axis of evil, and those being North Korea, Iran, and Venezuela. So let's start with North Korea and Rocket Man. How do you think he handled that?
Well, I think it's going to be a long, long time, to quote Elton John. It has been a long time. We've got to get serious about this, and I like the way President Trump said it. He said that this is a problem. We're going to face it. And he did mention, I wish he would have mentioned China by name, about those enabling North Korea. We cannot continue to stand for the North Koreans to continue to march down the road of potentially getting weapons ready, and not only them launching it, we're talking about the potential of them giving nuclear weapons to terror groups and having them smuggled in. So I think it was very appropriate for him to belittle and make it very clear what our objectives are in this. And I'm sorry, I don't agree with John, some of the guys over there on CNN and all these other, John Kirby, for example. I'm very disappointed in John Kirby. The destroying North Korea is something that every president's talked about as a reaction to their use of any nuclear weapon. So I don't see anything new here.
Right, except nothing has worked so far. Joel, the other side of the coin, people saying they either love the speech or they did not like the speech at all. And specifically with Iran, that the tough talk is dangerous. What do you think?
It's great to be with you, Heather, and I agree with Colonel Shaffer that they are serious threats. But this was a speech full of complaints and not of solutions. And on Iran, we're in danger of isolating ourselves from the world, and even President Trump of isolating himself from congressional Republicans. Just yesterday afternoon, Chairman Royce of Foreign Affairs Committee said we need to stay in the Iran deal, but oversee it well. So ending the deal would undermine our ability to prevent them from getting a bomb, separate us from our allies who we need to deal with North Korea, and really leave us with very few options but war. And war should be a last resort, not a first resort. And my fear is that impression yesterday that the president left was that it was his first choice with North Korea, and that could be a problem for engaging our allies.
So, Colonel Shaffer, since Joel moved on to Iran, do you think that the Iran deal has been working, or is the president correct in his assessment and that we need to possibly pull out?
Look, I'm with Joel on wanting to have a diplomatic solution. This is not it. It's a bad deal. It's not working. Everything I'm hearing behind the scenes is that the Iranians and North Koreans are doing everything they can to appear to comply, but skating around it. That's why we've seen this rapid expansion of the North Korean capability, because it was like an infusion of adrenaline. All the money we paid Iran ended up helping the North Koreans. The North Koreans are helping develop nuclear weapons and delivery capabilities. Essentially, they're the outsourcer for North Korea. So to me, it's like, why would you want to stay in a deal that's actually giving a hardened tunnel for the Iranians to follow through to come out down the other end with nuclear weapons? And I think that's why it needs to be relooked.
And North Korea clearly watching what has happened with Iran in terms of follow through and people making them, hold to these sanctions. Joel, let's move on to Venezuela. Comparing President Trump to Ronald Reagan, I think that they meant that to be a slight, but of course that for anyone in the Republican Party would be an honor. Joel?
It certainly came out awkwardly from the Venezuelans, and what their government is doing to their people is horrifying, and the Venezuelan people deserve better. But arguing for a military option will do nothing to undermine the Venezuelan government, and there is no will in the United States for a military option into Venezuela. I have to say on Iran, with all due respect, we need our inspectors in Iran, and even French President Emmanuel Macron yesterday argued that ending the deal ends our ability to see what they're doing, and currently the international inspectors do see that, and we need to have insight there, just like we need to with Venezuela. We need to work with our allies, not push them away.
Colonel Shaffer?
Well, look, the Venezuelan issue, I tend to agree we don't need to use any military force. It's going to collapse on its own. I think we have to be more worried about helping the UN get in there to stabilize the country, because I think we're seeing Venezuela on the road to being a failed state, just like we've seen in Libya. So, that's something we have to take very seriously. Back on the Iran issue for a second. Look, we've had the ability to monitor what the Iranians are doing, and I think that's part of the problem here, is that we see far too many people kind of helping the Iranians move the move this down the road. So some of those relationships with nations, are some of our allies even, I think is only helping the Iranians become more aggressive. So again, it's not only about the nuclear deal, it's about the fact that the Iranians have been very aggressive trying to insinuate themselves in the region. So this is not something that I think is healthy and something we should look at, because remember, the same people who negotiated the North Korean deal back in '94 were involved in the current deal with Iran. Right. And again, I think nobody would argue the '94 deal was a good deal for us regarding Korea.
Look at both of them together for sure. Colonel Shaffer, Joe Rubin, thank you very much for joining us so early this morning. Appreciate it.